people talk about gaslighting and all of those things. To me, that's tricky. It's tricky because one, I don't believe in gaslighting. Two, I'm not because gaslighting and maybe somebody can help me, but my brain doesn't register that. Jared, I just told you what I told you, and then you're trying to tell me that I said something else. Like, I just can't even understand that. And if I'm being honest, your children, I think it's normal again, like, because it goes back to we give our power away oftentimes. My 10-year-old, I guess if we're using a gaslighting term, he gaslights me all the time. Like, did you hear me? No, I didn't hear you. I definitely know that you just heard me. Like, so, and when you put, it goes back to things being interconnected, right? When you can start seeing that everything is not about you, and when I realize that my 10-year-old can gaslight me in the same manner that my boss could gaslight me, you realize that people are being human, and you always get to choose how you respond in those scenarios. Like, that makes sense because that's how my brain registers gaslighting. I can understand if you're trying to figure out who you are. A lot of things can feel like gaslighting, but again, rejection, feeling pain, all of those things are not normal. Life is always asking, inviting you to grow, in my mind.
So
Whether that's
the one thing I'll say, toxic versus complexity, to me, a lot of that's compatibility, right? I think people mistake incompatible with toxic a lot of times. And sometimes there is just going to be a disagreement. There is going to
mhm.
be not a meeting of the minds. And that doesn't mean it's toxic. It just means you guys are just not compatible. That's a lot of what it is. Now, where it would turn toxic to me, because I think something like with gaslighting, for example, what happens in those situations is it's more of like a process where people get
Yep,
sucked into these abusive scenarios where it's not that way at first, but slowly over time it can get like that. And then because the person like convinces them that they're always wrong, always guilty of something. And if you're just looking at it from the outside looking in, I could see why you would think that. But it's like
yep,
when you're in it, then for those people that are in it, it's like a lot, it's very difficult. But the solutions are kind of similar to what you just said in a way, because I just made a video about being gaslighting proof. So you had said, like, your son says some of these things. I didn't say that. And like, he's really just like, that's a manipulative thing to say, right? He's trying to
yeah,
manipulate you. And, but what I say to people also is if someone really has gaslit you, and it's been the gaslighting process and you're really bothered by what they have said, it really worked. It's one of two things. And this is a stage 2 of healing concept, by the way. But the one is either it's touching on something you're insecure about or feeling inadequate about, or you really care what this person thinks. So, like, you've subtly given some of your power away. And people really struggle with this because, oh, they say, oh, you're blaming the victim now. You're blaming the victim. It's like, no, two things can be true at once. Like, it's not their fault. They're being treated that way. And they might need to expand their capacity a little bit, because when they expand their capacity, they'll be more gaslighting proof, is what I
yep,
would call
yep,
it.
yep.
So
No, I
that's
agree.
it's a very a nuanced discussion, is what I would say about that. But that's the
It
solution.
is. But I think that that's where we need to lean in is to those more nuanced conversations because that's how you expand your capacity and you get to a place of being able to hold multiple perspectives. And I think that it creates more peace in your life when you're able to navigate multiple perspectives because you're not walking around like waiting for the next person to annoy, not waiting, but everything doesn't feel like an annoyance or bothersome.
Right. And I think like how it works is for them, it just happens over time. Like it's like not right away does that happen, but it's like when someone really cares about someone, for example, or maybe it's their parent, they get sucked into it because it's like what they know. Because I mean, everyone tries to attach to their caregivers too. And if someone had some caregivers that were toxic, they become more likely to get into relationships in adulthood with people like that. And that's familiar to them now too. Like, oh, this is what I associate love with. This is what I associate how my dad's supposed to treat my mom and vice versa. So that familiarity they mistake for safety, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
not safety at all. It's more like it's
Mm-hmm.
just the familiar pain, the familiar uncomfortable feelings, which can be simultaneously comfortable and uncomfortable. Like it's that familiar
Yep.
pain.
No, no, you're right. I love how you're absorbing and like reciting some of the, well, you're giving me back what I'm some of the things that I'm seeing, but in your own language that kind of ties it all together.
Well,
Sounds like a person that can hold multiple perspectives, Jared.
I try to hold multiple perspectives, and I think because I also I know what the pushback's going to be. Like if I when I post some
Mm-hmm.
of these clips, I know what they're going to say. So I try to, because I agree with what you're saying and the solutions of it all, right? I agree with that. So
Yep.
it's just a matter of how you get them to that place. And if people go too hard on them in the beginning, they're not going to follow you to get to those places. And granted, sometimes no matter what you do, they're not going to follow you. No matter what you do, they're going to find a reason to disagree or whatever. But I try to do both for them. I try to validate them and then get them to the next spot, but
Yep.
it doesn't always work.
Doesn't always work. And that's okay too.
Yeah. I mean, because it's not our responsibility to do it for them anyway. All we can do is offer guidance. We can offer our perspectives. What people do with that is really on them. You can only lead the horse to water, as they say.
Yep. You can't make them drink.
No, no. And when people are ready for things, they're ready for things. And I think there is a little bit of truth in when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. And for a lot
I
of people, that's you right now, I think. Like,
I see. I see.
so people are ready for you, and you come on the scene hot, boom, 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 three toxic trends to
I'm
go.
grateful. I'm grateful because this has been it's been a long time coming. Like I felt this way for about 5 years now, if I'm being honest. I didn't have my thinking wasn't as clear as it is today. But I also had, I would say two things could be true. I was still in that space and not being able to hold multiple perspectives as it related to this topic because I was like, well, there's so much work being done around mental health awareness. So many people are now seeking therapy. Like these are good things. People are willing to have medication. Like, how dare you come on the scenes and be disruptive to that? So I really struggled with that. And I was like, I just shut up and go and sit down somewhere. Like, don't bother these people. Like, leave the people alone. But then I started seeing more and more clients that are like, um, I tried this therapist, I tried this therapist, or I tried this modality, I tried this. Like something still feels like it's missing. And the more and more that I saw that, the more that those clients were validating me to say, "Raquel, maybe you have something." So I just continue to collect data and data. I continue to read and study, and boom, we're here now, Jared.
They're ready. They're ready for this kind of message. And I think, like we talked about before we went live, I think as a black woman, you are the person. You are a good person to be sharing this message.
Well, I'm learning. I see that people are more receptive because I don't think they would want to hear it from you, Jared, because they would
No,
say that you have too much privilege and how dare you call anyone a victim.
yeah, that's
So
I heard that
I
today.
I guess this being black works in my favor
No, it's
today.
good. It's a good thing in this, especially in this regard, because you're right. As a man, they'll say to me, "No, you don't understand women's issues. You
They'll say that too.
you definitely don't understand black people's issues." And they would be more
Hmm.
correct with that. Like I can understand rationally, but it's different than living it. The same
Because
thing
you
as a
haven't
woman.
had the experience. You don't
Right.
know what it's like to, yeah, yeah. No, I actually had that thought a few days ago because I was paying attention to the diverse following that I have. And that makes me feel good too because this labeling thing, while I'm talking about it from a mental health place, like, I just want to be a part of the solution and not just in all areas of my life. This is not just from a mental health standpoint. Like if I can get people to engage in very difficult conversations or get them to thinking to the point where you can start to have difficult conversations and see how we're all interconnected in ways, it will be a life well lived.
Yeah. And what I would emphasize for people when they watch your stuff is it's the things to be striving for.